Part 5, reckoning 5 years after the Battle of Axiom Prime, as historians now called it. The galaxy looked nothing like it had before. The Galactic Council, an institution that had stood for 10,000 years, was crumbling from within. Not because of outside threats, but because its own members had finally started asking the questions they should have asked millennia ago. High Arbiter Velmoth stood in the council chamber, a building that humanity had saved, but that now felt more like a museum than a seat of power. Around him, empty platforms marked where species had once sat in judgment of others. Half the council's members had left, forming independent governments or seeking alliances elsewhere. The species that remained were divided between those who wanted to maintain the old ways and those who demanded change. Councillor Thesivar, who had once been a minor voice in council politics, now led the reform faction. We cannot continue to pretend nothing has changed. The Dravine invasion exposed our weakness. Our military is outdated. Our technology is stagnant. Our laws prevent innovation. And the species we exiled a century ago is now more powerful than all of us combined. Which is exactly why we should be concerned, argued one of the hardline counselors. Humanity has no respect for tradition. They innovate without considering the consequences. They expand without asking permission. Everything we built was designed to prevent exactly what they've become. And how well did that work? Thesivar shot back. We exiled them to stop them from being dangerous. Instead, we freed them from our restrictions and they became stronger. Maybe the problem was not humanity. Maybe the problem was us. The debate might have continued for months, but events forced a resolution. A group of hardline counselors, unable to accept that their way of life was ending, attempted to activate an ancient weapon system hidden in the core of the council chamber. The weapon was designed to destroy entire star systems, a relic from wars fought before the council was formed. Their target was humanity's core worlds. Thesivar discovered the plot through a junior technician who was horrified by what he had been ordered to do. Rather than confront the conspirators through official channels, which would have taken too long, Thesivar did something unprecedented for a council species. He contacted humanity directly and told them everything. The response was swift. Human ships arrived within hours, moving faster than council sensors could track. But they did not come with weapons firing. Instead, teams of human engineers and security forces, working alongside Thesivar's people, peacefully disabled the weapon and detained the conspirators. When it was over, Velmoth found himself standing before the humans he had exiled a century ago. Admiral Seogen, now one of humanity's senior military leaders, regarded the old Valoran with something that might have been pity. "You tried to kill us," Seogen said simply, "not in battle, but with a weapon that would have destroyed billions of innocent people. And it was one of your own who stopped it because he knew it was wrong." Velmoth had no response. What could he say? That the conspirators were acting alone? That not all council members agreed with them? It sounded like excuses, and excuses did not change what had almost happened. "We could retaliate," Seogen continued. "We have the military power to do it. We could take council space, divide it among ourselves, and no one could stop us. But we're not going to do that. Do you know why?" Velmoth shook his head, light refracting through his crystalline form in patterns that showed his confusion and shame. "Because that's what you would do," Seogen said. "That's what you've always done. Control through fear. Maintain power through threat. We're supposed to be the dangerous ones, remember? The aggressive, unpredictable species that needed to be contained. But we don't want to conquer you. We want something much harder to achieve. What is that? We want to build something better. Together." The proposal came from President Yunbi, granddaughter of the president who had witnessed the exile. She addressed the remaining council species from a neutral station on the border between human and council space. Her message was broadcast across the galaxy, ensuring everyone heard it without filters or political interpretation. 100 years ago, the Galactic Council exiled humanity because we did not fit their vision of what a species should be. We were too ambitious, too innovative, too willing to change. They were right about all of that, but wrong about it being a problem. The Council spent 10,000 years maintaining the status quo, and in doing so, they stopped growing. They became so focused on preventing change that they forgot how to adapt. Humanity took a different path. We embraced change. We innovated constantly. We took risks that sometimes failed but more often succeeded. and we became stronger because of it. But strength without purpose is just another form of tyranny, and we refuse to become what the Council feared. So today, I propose something new. Not a council that rules from above, but a commonwealth of equals. Any species can join. Any species can leave. Decisions are made by consensus, not decree. Innovation is encouraged, not forbidden. And most importantly, no species is above another. The proposal was radical by council standards. It meant giving up centralized power. It meant trusting that different species could work together without one dominating the others. It meant accepting that there was no single right way to build a civilization. Many council species rejected it immediately. They could not imagine a galaxy where they were not in charge. But others, especially the younger species who had never fully bought into the council's philosophy, embraced the idea enthusiastically. Within a year, the Galactic Commonwealth was officially formed. 15 species joined initially, including several former council members who had left after the Dravine War. More joined over the following years as they saw the Commonwealth's success. It was not perfect. There were disagreements, cultural clashes, and political tensions. But it was growing, adapting, and most importantly, it was moving forward instead of standing still. Captain Jiho, now 127 years old and frail, lived to see the first Commonwealth Summit. He attended in a wheelchair, his body failing even as his mind remained sharp. The summit was held at a new station built where the council chamber had once orbited HFY. The old station had been decommissioned and turned into a museum, a reminder of what not to become. Ambassador Hyaron, also elderly, found Jiho on the observation deck. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching ships from dozens of species arrive for the summit. Human vessels flew alongside Valoran transports, Quilax research ships, and craft from species that had not even been known when Jiho and Hyaron first stood before the council. We spent 70 years trying to prove we belonged in their galaxy, Hyaron said softly. All that begging, all that trying to fit in, it was wasted effort. Not wasted, Jiho replied. It taught us what we didn't want to become. And when they threw us out, we knew exactly what kind of civilization we wanted to build instead. Do you think it will last? The Commonwealth? Jiho smiled. Nothing lasts forever. But it doesn't have to. It just has to be better than what came before. And it is. They watched in silence as the summit began inside the station. Leaders from across the galaxy gathered to discuss trade agreements, mutual defense, scientific collaboration, and exploration projects. There were arguments and disagreements, but they were the disagreements of equals working toward common goals, not the edicts of rulers controlling subjects. On the far side of the galaxy, Commander Jiwoo prepared her ship for departure. She had been promoted to captain and given command of a joint fleet, the first mission in Commonwealth history to explore beyond the galactic rim. Her crew included humans, Felorans, reformed Quilax, former council species, and a dozen races humanity had encountered during their expansion. As they ran final checks before departure, her communications officer forwarded a message from Earth. It was a recording made specifically for this moment. Jiwoo played it over the ship's intercom so her entire crew could hear. President Eunbi's voice filled the ship. To Captain Jiwoo and the crew of the Pathfinder, you are about to embark on a journey that represents everything we've worked toward. A century ago, humanity was exiled for being too ambitious, too curious, too hungry for the stars. Today you lead an alliance of species who share that hunger. The Council feared what we might become. We became something better. We became partners, friends, and explorers working together toward a common dream. The galaxy ahead is unknown. There will be dangers and challenges we cannot predict, but I have faith that you will face them as we have always faced the unknown, with courage, intelligence, and an unshakable belief that tomorrow can be better than today. The Council thought exile was an ending. You are proof that it was a beginning. Go forth and show the universe what we can achieve when we work together, instead of apart. The message ended. Jiwoo looked around at her diverse crew, beings from a dozen worlds working side by side at their stations. A century ago, this would have been impossible. The Council's laws would have prevented it. Their fear of change would have killed it before it began. All stations report ready, her first officer announced. Part 4. Collision. The Dravine hegemony had been a problem for the Galactic Council for 300 years. They were a warrior species that believed strength was the only virtue worth respecting. For centuries, they had raided Council colonies, taking resources and slaves while the Council tried to negotiate peace. But negotiations only worked when both sides wanted peace, and the Dravine had never wanted peace. They wanted conquest. The invasion began without warning. 50,000 Dravine warships, a fleet larger than anything the galaxy had seen in recorded history, struck at Council space from 3 directions simultaneously. Their targets were the most developed and defended worlds, places the Council thought were untouchable. They were wrong. Within the first week, 12 major colonies fell. The Council's defense fleets, using the same tactics and technology they had relied on for millennia, were torn apart by the Dravine's aggressive strategies. The Valorans called for negotiation. The Quilax retreated to their core systems. The Methodians prayed and did nothing useful. By the 3rd week, the Dravine were advancing on the Council chamber itself. High Arbiter Velmoth issued evacuation orders for non-essential personnel, something that had not happened in 10,000 years of Council history. The species that had once sat in judgment of humanity now faced extinction. News of the invasion reached human space through various sources. Long-range sensors detected the battles. Free Fleet scouts observed Dravine movements, and eventually, a few Council refugees managed to flee far enough to encounter human patrols and beg for asylum. Chancellor Minji convened the Solar Confederacy Senate in emergency session. The question before them was simple but profound. Should humanity help the Council that had exiled them? They threw us out, one senator argued. They called us dangerous and locked us away like criminals. Now they're losing a war they probably started through their own incompetence, and we're supposed to save them? The Dravine enslaved 3 of our colonies before the exile, another senator countered. They're not just the Council's problem. They're everyone's problem. Admiral Seojun attended the session via hologram from his flagship at the edge of Outer Reach territory. I have reports from forward scouts. The Dravine fleet is massive, and they're not stopping at Council space. Their trajectory takes them toward the regions we've settled. Whether we like it or not, this war is coming to us eventually. So we should fight them on ground the Council already lost? A senator asked. No, Seojun replied. We should fight them before they get that far. Strike while they're overextended and focused on the Council. Military Tactics 101. The debate raged for hours. Some senators wanted revenge for the exile. Others worried about the cost of a major war. Many simply did not want to risk human lives for species that had treated them with nothing but contempt. Then Captain Jiho, now old and no longer active in the military, requested permission to address the Senate. The man who had stood before the Council a century ago and been found wanting now, stood before his own people and spoke with quiet conviction. I was there when they exiled us, Jiho said, his voice still strong despite his age. I heard them call us dangerous. I watched them seal the barrier around Earth, and I hated them for it. He paused. But I also remember something my grandmother told me when I was young. She said, "The measure of a person is not what they do when it's easy, but what they do when it's hard." Right now, we have an easy choice and a hard choice. The easy choice is to let the Council fall, watch them suffer as we suffered, take their territory afterward and claim we're just better than they were. We'd be justified. We'd be right even, but we wouldn't be better. The hard choice is to help them despite what they did to us, to prove that we're not the monsters they thought we were, to show them that humanity doesn't abandon people to die because it's convenient or because we're holding a grudge. That's hard. That's painful, but that's what makes us different from them. Jiho looked around the chamber at the faces of humanity's leaders. They wanted us to stop reaching for the stars. They tried to cage us, and in a way they're still testing us. Are we the dangerous species they feared, or are we something better? This is our chance to prove it. Not to them, but to ourselves, the Senate voted. The decision was not unanimous, but it was clear. Humanity would intervene. Within days, the largest human fleet ever assembled began to mobilize. General Wubin, one of humanity's most experienced military commanders, took overall command. 3,000 warships, ranging from small frigates to massive carriers, prepared to cross into Council space for the first time in a century. The fleet included ships from all 3 human factions. The Solar Confederacy provided the heavy capital ships and carriers. The Outer Reach Alliance contributed fast attack craft and specialized assault vessels. The Free Fleet sent raiders and scouts who knew how to fight outnumbered. For the first time in decades, all of humanity united behind a single purpose. As they approached the Council space barrier, automated defense systems activated, recognizing human ship signatures. Weapons locked onto the fleet, preparing to fire. But before the first shot could be launched, Commander Jiwoo, a young officer who had been born after the exile, broadcast on all Council frequencies. "This is Commander Jiwoo of the Human Defense Fleet. We are not here as invaders. We are not here for revenge. The Draveen are attacking your worlds, and we are here to stop them. We're not asking for permission. We're informing you as a courtesy. The barrier can open and let us through to help, or it can stay closed and you can face the Draveen alone. Choose quickly." The Council's Emergency Council convened in minutes. They had no good options. Accept help from the species they had exiled or face extinction. Pride was a luxury they could no longer afford. The barrier opened. The human fleet crossed into Council space. And for the first time in 100 years, humans and Council species occupied the same region of the galaxy. But there was no time for politics or reconciliation. The Draveen hegemony had reached the Council chamber, and 10,000 of their warships surrounded the ancient station. General Wubin reviewed the tactical situation from the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable. The numbers were not good. 3,000 human ships against 10,000 Draveen vessels, but numbers had never been humanity's only advantage. "They're using swarm tactics," his tactical officer reported. "Overwhelming firepower from multiple directions. It works against Council fleets because Council ships fight defensively." "Then it's a good thing we don't fight like the Council," Wubin replied. He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is actual. The Draveen expect us to sit back and absorb their attacks like the Council does. We're not going to do that. We're going right down their throats. Aggressive assault pattern Delta 7. Make them regret waking up this morning." The human fleet dropped out of slipstream not at the edge of the battlefield, but in the middle of it, between the Draveen armada and the Council chamber. The Draveen, expecting another easy target, focused their fire on the newcomers. They quickly learned their mistake. Human shields, based on technology reverse-engineered from Methodian energy cores, absorbed hits that would have vaporized Council vessels. Human weapons, designed for precision strikes rather than wild spraying of fire, found weak points in Draveen armor. And human tactics, developed through decades of fighting pirates and raiders in the lawless regions beyond Council space, proved far more adaptable than anything the Draveen had encountered. Captain Haeun, flying a fighter from the carrier Resolute, led her squadron through gaps in the Draveen formation. "Multiple targets, pick your shots. Don't waste ammunition on their heavy armor. Hit the engines, weapons, and command modules." Admiral Tajin, commanding a group of support ships, deployed nanite swarms that the Council had never even imagined. The microscopic machines spread across enemy hulls, disabling weapons and creating system failures. Within minutes, dozens of Draveen capital ships went dead in space. Dr. Yuna's adaptive AI systems, installed in every human warship, analyzed Draveen tactics in real time and predicted their moves before they made them. What the Draveen thought was unpredictable aggression, the human computers saw as patterns that could be countered. The battle raged for 16 hours. Ships burned on both sides. Humans died protecting people who had cast them out. But slowly, inevitably, the tide turned. The Draveen had never faced an enemy that hit back as hard as they hit. They had built their entire strategy around overwhelming force against defensive targets. Humanity was not a defensive target. When the Draveen lost their flagship to a concentrated assault by human heavy cruisers, their formation broke. When they lost 3,000 more ships to human fighter squadrons and precision strikes, they began to retreat. And when Admiral Seojun's Outer Reach fleet cut off their escape route and destroyed another 2,000 vessels, the Draveen broke completely. The survivors fled, leaving behind the wreckage of 6,000 warships and the shattered remains of their reputation as unbeatable warriors. The Council chamber survived. The Galactic Council survived, and they did so only because humanity chose to save them. Part 3. Expansion. 100 years had passed since the barrier went up around Earth's solar system. The Galactic Council rarely thought about humanity anymore. When they did, they assumed the exiled species had either died out or learned their lesson about ambition. They were wrong on both counts. Chancellor Minji stood on the observation deck of Terra Nova Station, watching ships come and go from the massive orbital complex. Hundreds of vessels moved in carefully coordinated patterns, each one representing a different colony, corporation, or fleet group. This was just one of humanity's major hubs, and there were dozens more like it spread across their territory. The Scorched Zone, which the Council had abandoned as worthless, had become humanity's garden. Dead worlds were brought back to life through terraforming. Asteroid fields became mining operations. Ancient ruins yielded technology that human scientists combined with their own innovations to create something entirely new. The latest census numbers are in, her aide reported. 38 billion humans across 212 colonized systems. Population growth rate continues to exceed projections. Minji smiled. The Council had tried to cage humanity in one solar system. Instead, they had removed all restrictions on human expansion. Without Council rules about where they could settle or how fast they could grow, humanity had exploded across the galaxy like a supernova. But it was not just about numbers. Human technology had advanced beyond anything the Council used. Lead scientist Junseo and his team had spent decades studying the stolen Council data, finding patterns and principles that even the original creators had missed. What the Council treated as mystical technology, humans broke down into understandable science. In a laboratory on New Earth, Junseo demonstrated the latest breakthrough to a group of military officers. The Valorans use crystalline matrices for computing, but they never understood why they work. We do, and we made them better. He activated a device that looked nothing like the Council's bulky systems. This quantum processor is 1/10 the size and 100 times faster than anything the Valorans have. And that's just the start. Admiral Seojun, who commanded the Outer Reach defense fleets, leaned forward with interest. What about propulsion? Our ships are fast, but we could always be faster. Already solved, Junseo replied. We call it the quantum slipstream drive. It creates a temporary tunnel through space-time. Testing shows it's 3 times faster than Council jump technology. We'll have it in production ships within 2 years. The Admiral exchanged glances with the other officers. In 100 years, humanity had gone from copying alien technology to surpassing it. The Council, meanwhile, had not changed anything in 10,000 years. But technology was only part of the story. Humanity had split into 3 major political groups, each reflecting a different philosophy about their place in the galaxy. The Solar Confederacy, based on Earth and the core systems, believed in building a strong central government. They were the diplomats and administrators, the ones who maintained order and coordinated large-scale projects. Chancellor Minji led them with a practical approach that balanced ambition with responsibility. The Outer Reach Alliance represented the frontier colonies, the world's furthest from Earth, where pioneers carved out lives in harsh conditions. Admiral Seojun spoke for them, and his people valued independence above all else. They saw themselves as the true inheritors of humanity's bold spirit. The free fleets were nomadic groups that never stayed in one place. Commodore Nari commanded the largest of these fleets, over 200 ships that roamed unexplored space, trading and exploring without answering to any government. They were free in a way most humans could only dream about. Despite their differences, all 3 groups agreed on one thing: humanity would never be caged again. It was a free fleet vessel, the Wanderer's dream under Captain Heian, that first encountered proof the Council still existed. They had been exploring an uncharted system when their sensors picked up a distress signal. It's coming from a Council ship, Heian's sensor officer reported. Quilax design. They're under attack. Heian's first instinct was to ignore it. The Council had exiled humanity and tried to lock them away forever. Why should humans risk themselves for Council species? But then she thought about what made humans different from the Council. The Council ruled through fear and control. Humans were supposed to be better than that. All hands to battle stations, Heian ordered. We're going in. The Wanderer's dream dropped out of slipstream between the Quilax scout ship and its attackers. 5 vessels of a design Heian did not recognize, all firing weapons at the smaller Council craft. The human ship's shields absorbed hits that would have destroyed a Council vessel. Target their engines, Heian commanded. Disable, don't destroy. Human weapons designed for precision rather than overwhelming firepower struck with surgical accuracy. 3 of the attacking ships lost propulsion and drifted. The other 2 fled rather than face the unexpected newcomer. The Quilax ship drifted, damaged but intact. Heian opened a communication channel. This is Captain Heian of the human vessel Wanderer's Dream. Are you in need of assistance? Silence, then a voice, shocked and afraid. Human? Humans are extinct. The council sealed you away. Clearly, we're not extinct. Do you need help or not? More silence then. You saved us. Why? Heian considered her answer. Because you needed help and we were here. That's all the reason we need. They towed the Quilax ship to a stable orbit around a nearby moon, provided basic repairs, and gave them enough supplies to make it back to council space. The Quilax pilot kept expecting some demand for payment or service, but none came. Humans helped because they could, not because they expected something in return. When the Quilax pilot finally made it back to council space, their report caused immediate panic. The High Council convened an emergency session for the first time in decades. It's confirmed, a Valoran counselor announced. Humanity not only survived, they've expanded far beyond what we thought possible. Their technology is more advanced than ours. Their ships are faster, and they're active in regions we abandoned centuries ago. High Arbiter Velmoth, ancient even by Valoran standards, struggled to process this information. This is impossible. We sealed them away. They should have been contained. They were only sealed in their original solar system, another counselor pointed out. There were no barriers preventing them from expanding the other direction into the Scorched Zone. We never thought they'd be foolish enough to go there. But they did, Velmoth said quietly. And they thrived. A younger Valoran named Thessavar spoke up. Perhaps we were wrong about them. Perhaps they are not the threat we believed. They are absolutely a threat, a hardline counselor snapped. They have no respect for the established order. They innovate without considering the consequences. They expand without asking permission. They represent everything we spent 10,000 years preventing. And yet, Thessavar continued, when they encountered a council ship in distress, they helped without hesitation. That doesn't sound like a threat to me. The debate continued for hours, but no decision was reached. Some counselors wanted to send warships to confront humanity. Others wanted to pretend humans did not exist. A few, like Thessavar, suggested that maybe it was time to reconsider the exile. But before the council could decide anything, events beyond their control would force their hand. The Dravine hegemony, a violent species the council had been negotiating with for centuries, was about to launch the largest invasion the galaxy had seen in millennia, and humanity was about to make a choice that would change everything. Part 2. The Exodus Admiral Minho stared at the holographic display showing every human colony, station, and outpost in council space. 473 colonies glowed in red. Each one represented millions of lives, decades of work, and dreams of a future among the stars. All of it had to be abandoned in 12 months. The Situation Room on Earth's orbital command station buzzed with activity. Officers coordinated evacuation schedules while logistics teams calculated how many ships would be needed. The numbers were staggering. 6 billion people had to be moved, and humanity did not have enough transport vessels for even half that number. We'll need to commandeer every ship we have, said an officer whose name Minho had forgotten in the chaos of the past week. Commercial vessels, mining haulers, even old colony ships we retired decades ago. Do it, Minho ordered. Strip the military if you have to. Every ship that can carry people becomes a transport. But even as he gave the order, Minho was thinking about something else. Captain Jiho had sent a private message before his ship even reached Earth. The message was simple but clear. They were not leaving empty-handed. In a secure lab deep beneath the command station, Dr. Yuna worked with a team of scientists and engineers on a project that officially did not exist. For the past 70 years, humanity had been part of the Galactic Council. In that time, they had seen technologies that seemed like magic. Faster engines, stronger materials, computers that learned and adapted, energy systems that defied physics as humans understood it. The Council never shared these technologies. They claimed humans were not ready, but humans had eyes. They had scientists, and they had been taking notes. How much can we take? Yuna asked Engineer Taejin, who stood over a table covered in data chips and storage devices. Everything, Taejin replied with a grin. Every scan we've ever made of Valoran computing systems. Every analysis of Quilax biological engineering. Every reading we took from Methodian power cores. 70 years of observations, measurements, and educated guesses. It's all here. Will it be enough to rebuild their technology? Probably not. but it'll give us a starting point. We know what's possible now. That's half the battle. Yuna nodded and turned to her team.
Start making copies.
Multiple redundant backups spread across different ships. If we lose one, we still have the others. This knowledge is humanity's future. While scientists worked on stealing technology, Tejan led a different operation across the colonies. His teams moved from system to system under the guise of assisting with evacuations. But they were doing something else entirely. Every human-built structure in Council space was dismantled. Not destroyed, taken apart piece by piece, loaded onto cargo ships and hauled away. Orbital stations, surface installations, mining equipment, terraforming machines. If humans had built it, humans were taking it with them. What about the stuff that's bolted to the ground? A young engineer asked while they worked on a colony world called New Horizon. Tejan pulled out a plasma cutter. Then we unbolt it. The Council noticed but did nothing. They wanted humans gone. They did not care what humans took with them as long as they left before the deadline. It was a mistake that would haunt them. On Earth, President Unbi prepared to address her species. Every human with access to a communication device would hear this message. It would define how humanity remembered this moment in history. She stood before the cameras, Earth visible through the window behind her. My fellow humans across the stars and here at home, I will not lie to you. The Council has judged us and found us wanting. They call us dangerous. They say we reach too far, dream too big, want too much. They are right. She paused, letting the words sink in. We are dangerous to their stagnation. We do dream bigger than they can imagine. And yes, we want more than they think we deserve. The Council has maintained their peace for 10,000 years by doing nothing, building nothing, and becoming nothing. They look at us and see chaos. I look at us and see potential. The President's voice grew stronger. They are exiling us. They think they are protecting themselves. But they are giving us something more valuable than any technology or territory. They are giving us freedom. Freedom from their rules. Freedom from their fear. Freedom to become what we were always meant to be. In 1 year, we will leave Council space. We will return to our home system. But we will not stay there. Beyond the Council's borders are millions of unexplored stars. Dead zones they abandoned. Forbidden regions they fear. That is where we will go. That is where we will build. And when we return, it will not be as exiles begging for acceptance. It will be as equals demanding respect. The message ended, but its effect rippled across human space. People who had been afraid now felt determined. Colonies that had despaired now worked with purpose. The Council meant to break humanity's spirit. Instead, they had forged it into something stronger. Scout Captain Doyen took his ship beyond Council space before the evacuation even began. His mission was simple: find somewhere humanity could go. The Council had sealed off certain regions of the galaxy, places they called the Scorched Zone. Officially, these areas were dead space, worthless and dangerous. But Doyen suspected the truth was more complicated. His sensors picked up readings that made no sense according to Council science. Rich mineral deposits on dead worlds. Stable star systems with no inhabitants. Signs of ancient civilizations that had vanished long before the Council existed. This was not a wasteland. This was a frontier. Captain, look at this, his navigation officer called out. I'm picking up energy signatures from a planet 3 systems over. They don't match any known Council technology. Doyen altered course to investigate. What they found changed everything. The planet was dead, but structures remained. Not ruins, but actual buildings made from materials that had survived for thousands of years. And inside those buildings were data archives. It took weeks to decrypt even a fraction of the information, but what they learned was stunning. The Scorched Zone had once been home to a thriving civilization. They had built wonders that made Council technology look primitive. Then they had vanished, and the Council had claimed this entire region was cursed to prevent anyone from learning the truth. Why would they hide this? The navigation officer asked. Because it proves they're not special, Doyen replied. They want everyone to think their way is the only way. This civilization found a different path. That's dangerous to the Council's entire worldview. Doyen sent an encrypted message back to Earth. Humanity had a destination. They had resources. And they had proof that the Council's wisdom was built on lies. As the 1-year deadline approached, the last human ship prepared to leave Council space. The colony transport New Horizon, commanded by Captain Sora, carried refugees from the most distant colonies. Behind them, an energy barrier began to form around Earth's solar system. Ancient council technology creating a prison meant to last forever. Sora watched the barrier grow on her sensors. In a few hours it would seal completely. Earth and all its orbital stations would be cut off from the rest of the galaxy. The council believed they were containing a threat. They had no idea they were just making humanity angry. All passengers secure, her first officer reported. We're the last ones. Then let's go home, Sora said. We've got a galaxy to conquer. The New Horizons engines flared and the ship shot forward, passing through the barrier moments before it sealed shut. Behind them, the council's great wall completed itself, a monument to fear disguised as wisdom. Humanity was alone. But they were also free, and that made all the difference. Part 1. The Verdict. The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, held in orbit around a dying star that had witnessed civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. Inside the massive structure, Captain Jiho stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his military uniform crisp despite the long journey to get here. Beside him, Ambassador Hyeron wore formal diplomatic robes, though her face showed the exhaustion of someone who had fought a losing battle for months. They stood in the center of a circular room that stretched hundreds of meters in every direction. Above them, below them, and all around them sat the members of the Galactic Council. Each species had their designated platform, floating in the air through technology humanity still did not fully understand. The Valorans looked like living crystals barely moving as light refracted through their bodies. The Quilex resembled a mass of writhing tentacles that somehow spoke with one voice. The Methodians were beings of pure energy, contained within ceremonial vessels that hummed with power. There were others too. Species humanity had only met briefly during their 73 years as junior members of this grand alliance. Each one ancient, each one powerful, each one looking down at the two humans with what could only be described as disappointment. High Arbiter Velmoth spoke, and his voice echoed through translation devices implanted in every attendee. Humanity stands accused of violating the preservation protocols. You have expanded beyond your assigned territories. You have built military fleets without authorization. You have refused to disarm when the Council deemed it necessary for galactic peace. Jiho wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. The unauthorized expansion meant colonizing 12 empty star systems in a region no other species wanted. The military fleets were built after pirates attacked human colonies and killed thousands of people, while the Council did nothing. The refusal to disarm came after humanity realized that being defenseless in this galaxy was a death sentence. Hyeron stepped forward, her voice steady despite the odds. Honored Council, humanity has followed your laws to the best of our ability. We colonized uninhabited worlds. We built defenses only after our people were attacked. We have contributed to Council operations, paid our dues, and stood alongside you against common threats. Just 5 years ago, human ships helped repel the Scourge Raiders from Velaran territory. A Velaran counselor, one whose name Jiho had never learned, spoke without emotion. Your assistance was noted. It does not excuse your violations. What violations? Jiho could not help himself anymore. We settled empty worlds. We protected our own people. We've done nothing that every other species in this chamber hasn't done. You do not understand, said the Quilax representative, all its tentacles moving as one. The preservation protocols exist to maintain balance. Aggressive expansion leads to conflict. Military buildup leads to war. We have maintained peace for 10,000 years by preventing these behaviors. Jiho looked around at the council members, really looked at them. He saw what Hyeron had tried to explain to Earth's government for years. These species were not peaceful. They were stagnant. Their technology had not changed in millennia. Their borders had not shifted. They did nothing, built nothing, dreamed nothing, and called it wisdom. You haven't maintained peace, Jiho said quietly. You've maintained a graveyard. Nothing grows here. Nothing changes. You've forgotten what it means to reach for something better. The chamber fell silent. Energy crackled around the Methodian vessels, a sign of their anger. Even the slow Velarans seemed to shift, light bending in strange patterns. High Arbiter Velmoth raised what might have been a limb. This is why humanity cannot remain. You do not understand the sacred balance. You are too young, too reckless, too dangerous. Your species thinks change is progress. You believe reaching for the stars is noble. You cannot see that your ambition threatens everything we have built. Hieron tried one more time. Then teach us, guide us. Isn't that what the council is supposed to do? We're willing to learn, to adapt, to find a way forward together. There is no way forward with your kind, another counselor said. We have deliberated for months. The decision is final. Velmoth's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Humanity is hereby exiled from council space. You have one standard galactic year to evacuate all your colonies, stations, and vessels from territories under council jurisdiction. This includes 473 colonies, 62 trading posts, and 15 diplomatic stations. Your home system will be sealed behind a barrier. No human ship will be permitted to cross into council space after the deadline. Any vessel that violates this order will be destroyed without warning. The words hit Jiho like a physical blow. 473 colonies meant billions of people, families who had built lives on distant worlds, children born under alien suns who had never seen Earth. All of them would have to leave everything behind. You're condemning us, Hieron whispered. We are preserving the galaxy, Velmoth replied. Your people will have your home system. The barrier will ensure you remain there. Perhaps in isolation, humanity will learn the wisdom of stillness. Jiho felt rage building inside him, but he forced it down. Getting angry now would change nothing. Instead, he straightened his uniform and looked directly at the High Arbiter. Is that everything? You are dismissed. As they walked toward the exit, Jiho leaned close to Hieron and whispered, They just made the biggest mistake of their long, boring lives. What do you mean? They think they're punishing us. They think exile will destroy us. Jiho smiled, though there was no humor in it. They're wrong. They've freed us from their rules, their restrictions, their fear. They've given us permission to become everything they're afraid of. The doors closed behind them, sealing them out of the council chamber. In 1 year, those doors would close on all of humanity. But Jiho was already thinking ahead. Earth needed to know. The colonies needed to prepare. And humanity needed to decide what kind of species they wanted to be. As their ship departed the council station, Jiho stood at the window and watched the ancient structure shrink into the distance. They wanted us to stop reaching for the stars, he said to himself. Instead, they're about to learn that you can't cage something that was born to fly. The journey back to Earth would take 3 weeks. That gave him plenty of time to start making plans. The council thought they were ending humanity's story in the galaxy. They had no idea they were just beginning it.